Hello, a warm welcome to you from SGT University. I am Dr. Ramindranath Talukdar from Faculty of Medical and Health Science. Today we are going to learn about different routes of feeding in a surgical patient. Malnutrition is present in about 30% of surgical patients with gastrointestinal disease, and it increases up to 60% if the hospital stay is prolonged. It is frequently unrecognized. It has higher risk of complications. What is the aim of poor nutritional support? It is to identify those patients at risk of malnutrition and to ensure that their nutritional requirements are met by the most appropriate route. What are the caloric requirements? Who should be given how much calories? For the neonatal, it is 100 kilocalories per kg per day. For adults, 40 kilocalories per kg per day. Adults with catabolism, it is up to 60 kilocalories per kg per day. Caloric requirements, it is given as 50% from carbohydrates, from fat 30 to 40%, from protein 10 to 15%. And what are the caloric values we get? From carbohydrate we get 4 kilocalories per gram. From protein we get 4 kilocalories per gram. And from fats we receive 9 kilocalories per gram. What's the indication for nutritional support? First, preoperative nutritional depletion. Second, post-operative complications like sepsis, ileus, fistula, intestinal fistula, high type, and especially if the output is greater than 500 ml per day. Other indications like anorexia nervosa and intractable vomiting, trauma, multiple fractures, faciomaxillary and head and neck injuries, and massive bowel resection causing short bowel syndrome. Other indications include pancreatitis, malabsorption, ulcerative colitis, pyloric stenosis, burns, malignant disease, renal failure, and liver failure. So these are some of the indications of nutritional support. How do we assess the nutritional status of a patient? For nutritional assessment, there are 5 criteria. One, you can see the body weight. If the body weight decreases, the patient's nutrition is poor. Similarly, the mid-arm circumference, it decreases with poor nutrition. Tricep skin fold, again it decreases. Serum albumin becomes low, and also lymphocyte count, you get a low lymphocyte count. So these parameters we can calculate the nutritional assessment of a patient. So let us now discuss about various methods of feeding. What are the methods of feeding? First is enteral nutrition, that is the feeding given to the gastrointestinal tract. Second, parenteral nutrition. Here we give the nutrition, that is intravenous administration, and sometimes we give all the nutrition through the parenteral route, which we call it as TPN, that is total parenteral nutrition. Now coming to the enteral feeding, as you know, GIT is the best route and can be delivered by bolus, by gravity, or by using a mechanical pump. The picture shows a mechanical pump. In some cases using a mechanical pump where we can put a measured feeding. And when you give by mouth, it will require a common sense, cleanliness, and compassion. In the enteral feeding, by nasogastric tube, we can give 30 to 50 ml per hour, and 5 hours night gap is given to allow gastric pH to return to normal. You can see in the picture, the first picture, that is the nasogastric tube, and in the second picture how a nasogastric is fixed and the feeding is given through the nasogastric tube. The next method is gastrostomy. It is done if the feeding is required for more than a month. Commonly we have 2 types of gastrostomy. One we call it as stem gastrostomy, and the other one is Janeway gastrostomy. Coming to the first variety, stem gastrostomy. What do we do in stem gastrostomy? After opening the abdomen, we get to the anterior wall of the stomach, which we open it, and then we put a feeding tube in the stomach, and the feeding tube commonly which we put is a Malikoff's catheter. Then 2 layers bursting sutures are placed around the tube and the wound is closed. So this is stamped gastrostomy. The second method is here a tunnel is created in the stomach wall, a procedure used to gain permanent access to stomach. Full thickness stomach flap is taken from the greater curvature and then closed. As you can see in the picture, the tunnel is been created and a full thickness stomach flap is taken up to the greater curvature, and then when it is closed along with a tunnel. So this is Janeway gastrostomy. The next is a PEG tube or percutaneous endoscopic gastrostomy. This is a method of placing a tube into the stomach percutaneously aided by an endoscope. This is becoming more common and this is being carried out and by the gastroenterologists, and they are preferring it. There you can see in the picture, this is a PEG tube and this is how a PEG tube looks like after placing it. So this is placed with the help of an endoscope and also you go through a percutaneous route. And the next method is by enterostomy. And in the enterostomy we mean is a jejunostomy, which are again of 2 types. The first method is Weigell's jejunostomy. Here you can see in the picture, it is a most common method. It is an open technique where the jejunum is exposed. Jejunostomy is sited 30 cm distal to the ligament of Treves. You put a catheter, that is a feeding tube, and it is tunneled in a cerebrovascular tube as you can see in the picture, and then it is closed. So this is a Weigell's type of jejunostomy. And the next method is a percutaneous jejunostomy. You can see in the picture, it is really more difficult, though it is a percutaneous and is performed under a fluoroscopic guidance. A jejunal loop is punctured under the ultrasonic guidance. With the guide wire in place, the track is dilated and a 10 French pigtail catheter is inserted. Though this is a percutaneous jejunostomy which can be carried out, but it requires an expert hands.
There are various problems in tube feeding. Now let's discuss about the problems.
What are the different problems of tube feeding? We can summarize as number 1, blockage, nausea and vomiting, aspiration, hyperosmolarity, diarrhea, tube discomfort and cholestasis. Coming to the complications of enteral feeding, there is a tube related. What are the tube related complications? Gastrointestinal and metabolic or biochemical. So complication of enteral feeding can be divided into 3: tube related, gastrointestinal and metabolic or biochemical complications. Let's discuss the tube related complications. That is malposition, displacement. Tube might be displaced, it might be blocked, it might breakage, or there might be some leakage. Or local complications, example erosion of skin or mucosa. The gastrointestinal complications like diarrhea, bloating, nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, aspiration, constipation. Metabolic or biochemical complications: electrolyte disorders, vitamin, mineral, trace elements deficiencies, drug interactions, infective and exogenous, there is a handling contamination. But there are some advantages also. So what are the advantages of enteral feeding? Enteral feeding preserves mucosal protein, digestive enzymes, IgA secretions, prevents mucosal atrophy and bacterial translocations. It is more physiological as nutrients pass through liver, the first filter to process and store. The third is gallstone formation is prevented by stimulating gallbladder motility. It has less serious complications. It is cost effective. It supplies glutamine and short chain fatty acids to the gut.
So until now we have discussed about the enteral feeding. Now let us discuss about what is parenteral nutrition.
As I have already told, it is intravenous administration of nutrition. As you can see in the picture, this is how intravenous administration is given. The white color bag contains lipid, and the other bag, it contains protein, carbohydrate, fat, minerals, electrolytes, vitamins and other trace elements for the patients. So this is a parenteral nutrition where all the nutrition that the patient requires is administered intravenously. Central venous catheter. This is another method. It can be through a central vein catheter through a subclavian or internal jugular vein, as you can see in the picture, and the tip is at the distal part of the superior vena cava. And you can see in the inset how a central venous catheter is placed, and this is a method of feeding a patient. That's a type of parenteral nutrition. And another technique is a peripherally inserted central venous catheter. Here we insert the catheter in the peripheral vein. As you can see in the picture, it is being inserted through the arm. So it can also be a peripheral parenteral nutrition, which we call it as PPN, through a peripherally inserted central venous catheter. We call it as PICC. So it is done through a formal peripheral line. So we have discussed about these are various methods by which a nutrition can be given to a surgical patient.
So we have covered today different routes of feeding in a surgical patient, and the next time when we meet, we will be discussing in details about some of the surgical procedures. Keep learning, keep growing, and see you next time.